Welcome to I Am Discipling, a podcast to empower you, encourage you, and equip you in the area of discipleship. I am your host, Isaac Abel, founder of I Am Ministries. Now be sure to like, subscribe, and share I Am Discipling. All right, everyone, we are back at it again with another episode giving us a better understanding as to what it means to be a disciple of Christ. And just as a minor heads up, this episode may be a bit shorter than the rest. Well, that's just because the point being made needs no great revelation. It just needs to be said. So let me say this. Being a disciple of Christ is just as important as it was 2,000 years ago. Can I get an amen, somebody? Honestly, it's important that you and I choose not only to understand discipleship, but it's just as important that we become a disciple of Jesus. And before we get started, let me also add that as of right now, I have intentions of returning to India to be a blessing through pastoral conferences all throughout India, while also feeding the widows and the children. Much more ministry will be taking place. So if you would like to financially partner alongside the ministry, you can give any amount at isaacableministries.org. Trust me, it is for a great cause. All right, let's get started. Many years ago, I recall being at a local Kroger food store when somehow the conversation of attending church, it had come up, and the individual assisting me at checkout said, "Yeah, I don't go to church because I'm not religious." Well, I responded by saying, "I attend church because I choose to be in a relationship with Jesus." Basically, what I was explaining to him is that the lifestyle of Christianity, it's not about a religious order. It's more so about a relational transaction. Folks, Christianity and following Jesus is so much deeper than the common narrow-minded view that some may have. You see, your greatest joy should be in your development, and that starts as you being a student of Jesus' commands. On another occasion, I had a brief conversation with some stranger. Well, he was wearing a nice necklace, and I opened up the conversation up by saying, "That's a nice cross on your chain, but do you know what it means to carry yours?" Okay, honestly, that may have been a little abrupt, but it was an honest question, which in turn resulted in a very confused look coming from him. But I, of course, got to explain what I was talking about. But oftentimes, in the same way that some see Christianity through the lens of a religious view, some wear a cross around their neck but have no understanding about carrying their own. Here's the point. As a disciple, you are commanded to carry your cross, not just wear one around your neck. Well, the title of today's episode is Disciples Carry a Cross. Okay, listen here. I believe, honestly, that the greatest mark of a disciple is the one who has chosen to carry their cross. Up until this point, we have spoken on subject matters such as what it means to side with Jesus, how we are commanded to sit with sinners, even that disciples don't carry pillows, if you recall that one. If you haven't listened to it, I encourage you, go back. That was an amazing one. The list goes on. But the greatest mark of a disciple is this concept right here. It's the one who carries his own cross. Oftentimes, we may even say things such as, "I want to look more like Jesus today." Let me tell you this. Jesus clearly left behind a way in which that is possible. His teachings come with commands, and they show us how we ought to speak as well as how we are to act. Well, this concept and this command is extremely clear, and in Matthew chapter 16, verse 24, Jesus himself, he says this, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Guys, the first order of business is what? It's to deny yourself. As a disciple of Jesus, what you want no longer matters. Now, this pill may be hard to swallow for some, and it's also why some stay stuck in their own ways. When you deny yourself, you're denying everything about yourself, including your perception and the way that you think. Now, why would I say that? I don't know, maybe because of what Jesus did when he bled drops of blood out of his forehead. He's in the garden pleading with the Father, knowing that the cross he was about to carry would be hard, knowing that his persecution was going to be extremely evil and tormenting. But Jesus says what? "Not my will, but your will be done." That's what it means to deny yourself. I know what I want, but it doesn't matter. What matters is what you want, what the Father wants. May your kingdom come. May your will be done. That's what it's about. That's what it means to deny yourself. Listen, stop thinking that you know best. Your own strategy may very well be the thing that's holding you back. Rather, seek the Father, deny yourself, and do as Jesus did. Not my will, your will. Now remember, Jesus said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross. He did not say wear one around your neck. He says take yours up, as in carry your cross. You are first called to deny yourself, then you're called to take up your cross. Let me be very transparent with you. There is nothing appealing about carrying your cross except for the fact that you are marking yourself as a disciple of Christ. To carry your cross, it means you're not only willing to deny yourself, but that you are willing to die to self. That at the expense of your self-sacrifice, you gain life. Why do I say that? Well, because in the very next verse, Jesus goes on to say, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. This is why even the Apostle Paul says, to live is Christ, to die is gain. Jesus is our source. He is our joy. He is the sole reason to live. But if I take up my cross and I choose to die to self, that's gain, people. You gain it all. It's a new life built on his sacrifice so that you may find a new life. And that life, it's found in him. However, you must first deny yourself, especially your worldview and your perception of what it is that you think is best for you. Then you do what? You take up your cross. You make the choice to die so that you may gain his will for your life. Lastly, what did Jesus say in verse 24? He said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Listen, everyone, it's a process, but the end goal is to follow him. In earlier episodes, we clearly distinguished what it means to follow him. If you recall, in Greek, it means to side with him, not just accompany him. As in, the line has been drawn in the sand, guys. Are you with him or are you against him? It literally is that simple of a question. To follow him means you have chosen to embrace the entirety of his teachings and his commands, and you have chosen to make them not only applicable to your life, but rather his ways become your lifestyle. Watch this. In the book of Luke, chapter 6, verse 40, it says this about discipleship. Students are not greater than their teacher, but the student who is fully trained will become like the teacher. What are we to do based on that scripture? We are to become like the teacher. Following Jesus, his ways and commands does just that. It results in you and I becoming like the greatest teacher ever, that being Jesus. Listen, it's one thing to know scripture, to be able to quote scripture while also understanding Christian disciplines, but none of that matters when you don't deny yourself, when you don't take up your cross and follow him. It truly is the greatest mark of a disciple to carry his or her own cross. As stated earlier, there is nothing appealing about carrying your cross except for the fact that you are marking yourself as a disciple of Christ. The greatest action prior to carrying your cross is denying yourself. That's the hardest part. I get it, because it takes humility on your behalf. Think about it like this. Scripture says, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you. It says, humble yourself. It does not say you shall be humbled. It says humble yourself. That's because the act of humbling yourself is denying yourself. It's the act of taking up your cross. So if you're still wondering about how to take up your cross, I'll say start with humility. Acknowledge that your ways are not higher than his ways. Understand that apart from him, you can do absolutely nothing, just as the word says. Recognize that you are nothing without him. Listen up, everybody. Humble yourselves. When you began the process of humility, you began the process of taking up your cross. So deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow him. Lastly, remember this. As a disciple, you are commanded to carry your cross, not just wear one around your neck. Thank you for joining us for this episode in your I Am Discipling podcast, where we desire to empower you, encourage you, and equip you in the area of discipleship. Now take a brief moment to subscribe and share the podcast.